afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kendra Titley, and I will be your moderator. Before we
Good afternoon, everybody.
The press conference includes simultaneous and sign language interpretation services. It is available either in full French or full English. If you are watching live, you can find our stream in each language on YouTube. Simply search our channels at City of Ottawa or Ville d'Ottawa. A note to media outlets joining us on Zoom. If you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon in the bottom menu, then select your preferred language. You can ask your questions in the language of your choice. Today, we will be hearing remarks from Renee Almacar, General Manager, Transit Services, and Richard Holder, Director, Engineering Services. Available to answer questions from the media, we also have Nicolas Truchon, Chief Executive Officer, Rideau Transit Group, and Enrique Martinez, General Manager, Rideau Transit Maintenance. At this time, I would like to invite Renee Almacar, General Manager of the Transit Services Department, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Kendra. Merci beaucoup. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis contente de vous voir ici cet après-midi. Je veux vous assurer que je suis au courant que ça fait 9 jours que nous sommes en arrêt du système du train léger.
I know it has been 9 days that the system and the train is stopped. I'm unhappy about it, but I want to reassure you. But I can tell you that I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you and I continue to work for you.
This is the 9th day of the shutdown. I'm disappointed because it's not the quality of the service that I want to deliver to the citizens of Ottawa. You talk, I will continue to listen, I will continue to hear you, and I will continue working. At yesterday's news conference, we provided a significant amount of information on the next steps to safely return to service and long-term solutions to the bearing issues our system has experienced. Today, I would like to summarize the information we presented. Alstom is currently working on a redesign of the axle wheel hub assembly. This redesign will provide us with a permanent fix to the issue with the bearing. In the meantime, we are focused on the work to resume all train service safely. We still anticipate that this will be possible for Monday, July 31st. I would like to take a moment to go over what is needed to relaunch service. There are 3 required components. First, an inspection of all the axle bearings in our fleet. This is complete. We know that 6 are under further investigation. Second, the result of an analysis of the hub assembly from the manufacturer, Texelis. This is expected on July 28th. Third, a revised safety note from Alstom and RTG. That note is in progress, and I expect to receive another draft tomorrow. I want to recall that the drafting of the safety note is done in cooperation between OC Transpo, Alstom, and RTG. Once these 3 things are in place, real service can gradually resume. Transportation Resources Associated, TRA, also continues to work with all partners. Tomorrow, I will be able to provide more details on the availability of the fleet and our operational plan to gradually resume service. To our customers, I want to say, I know the current service interruption is frustrating and impacts your daily life. Je sais que ce non-livraison du service
I know that the non-delivery of the service is impacting your life, and I don't like this.
We are working around the clock to be able to resume service, but I will not compromise safety. As soon as we have ensured all safety requirements have been met, we will begin to gradually restore train service. Now I would like to ask Richard Older, Director of Transit Engineer, to give a little bit of information about the returning rail and explain one of the tests that Alstom is working on today. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you very much.
Yesterday, I indicated that there were two phases to the current investigation, an inspection phase and an instrumented bogey test phase. Both these phases are running simultaneously, and today I will give some more detail on the inspection of the restraining rail and the current instrumented bogey testing. Restraining rails are a common design feature for North American railways and are a passive safety device installed to mitigate the risk of derailment in curves. It has been determined through inspections of the track that although the restraining rail is within the design tolerances of the track, contact has been occurring between the restraining rail and the light rail vehicle wheels. RTG has already started resetting the restraining rails across the whole alignment to the upper end of its placement tolerance. This will minimize the risk of contact occurring and reduce the forces on the vehicle wheels. All the restraining rails are still expected to be realigned by July the 30th. RTG has also been running several instrumented bogey tests. The axles and hubs of one test vehicle, LRV 47, is currently being fitted with accelerometers and strain gauges to record data on the behavior of the bogies and the forces it is exposed to as it runs through the alignment. Tomorrow morning, RTG will run the instrumented test train fitted with an out-of-tolerance axle hub along the main line at regular track speeds. The data from this test will help to determine the vibration signature of an out-of-tolerance axle hub assembly and help to inform further analysis of the use of vibration sensors on the light rail vehicles as a means of monitoring the condition of axle hubs in service. As I conclude, I want to take a moment to thank the entire team for their tireless work throughout this incident, and I also want to say to our customers a thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I will now invite each media agency to ask their questions. You may ask one question with a follow-up. We'll now start with Avantika Anand at CBC Ottawa.
Thank you. My question today is regarding, with every day with the personnel that are working, the R1 service bus drivers, staff working overtime. I understand that the city has to pay this cost. I'm hoping you can give me a cost estimate of how much this is costing per day, or at least how much it's cost up to date.
Thank you for the question. I don't have on the top of my head what is the cost, but what can I tell you is, we don't have people just sitting and waiting for a shutdown. So we are using people that we have, and for sure we offer overtime. And that cost is not very, very high necessarily because people are not necessarily willing to do overtime. So what we are doing actually is we're trying to remove service where, if we have another headway, if we have a 5 minutes headway, so we can propose an 8-minute headway and take those bus drivers and those buses for the errand service.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you don't have a cost estimate for how much the city is paying staff, personnel, etc. As a follow-up, has the city or has OC Transpo hired a PR firm to help you with the communication surrounding the shutdown and the R1 bus service?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. My question as a follow-up, I'm wondering, has the city or OC Transpo hired a PR firm to help with communication surrounding the LRT shutdown and the R1 bus service?
Thank you for the question. So just before to go to this question, I just want to say that I have the cost, but I don't have it on the top of my head. So that this is something potentially we could provide. So for the next question, we don't have any public relation who helps us because we have the city staff. I have my own team here, so we are dealing with that. And our first goal for sure is to resume the service, and we want to make sure as well that you keep you informed.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Elise Cura at CBC Radio.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to start by asking about, how now that it's been a full week of the R1 service, has the city found that they've been able to consistently reach their goal of providing bus service every 5 minutes during rush hour?
Thank you for the question. I would say, and I said that yesterday as well, we will never be able to replace a train by buses. It's impossible. So what we're doing now, we are trying to deliver the service. And again, my goal is to restart as soon as possible the train, because the train will provide a better service and without any traffic and with a lot of place, and with the headway that we can guarantee, because we don't have to deal with the traffic.
Yes, sorry, I understand that, and I know that there's been changes made to try and alleviate some of the traffic congestion and that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, since the city did in its first memo say that the goal was 5 minutes, whether or not is that even still the goal, I guess?
Yeah, thank you. So it's the goal for sure, but we cannot guarantee it because of the traffic. However, just having 36 buses instead of 28, definitively it's better. And the fact that we can use, instead of Queen Street, we can use Slater and Albert. This is very helpful as well. And the other thing, we know that from Erdman to Lees, it's a little bit tough to go there, so that's why we have put in place a shuttle, just to make sure that we can improve the service as our customers talk to us.
Right, and so that's given you more consistency.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is more of a technical question. I'm just wondering, in terms of the lubrication on the 16 points on the line where the curves are, how often is that kind of grease lubrication going to need to be reapplied in order to still see the desired effect on the vehicles as they go around that tight corner?
I would like Enrique, please, to answer to that question.
Okay, thank you, Elise, for the question. Well, the lubrication, well, there are different lubrication systems in a railway. One of them is the flange lubrication system, which in our specific vehicle is an onboard system, and it's applied by a pneumatic system, based on either time or the position of the train. The system we are talking as one of the potential mitigations of the forces on the axle is a top-of-rail lubrication system. We need specific machines with pumps to apply a specific amount of product, and this is part of the investigation process that we are conducting to identify the exact amount of product that is necessary to adapt the coefficient friction to the parameters that we need in this operation.
Right, and so I just want to understand, because I mean, I'm not an engineer, of course, but my understanding is that when the train comes around, it's going to remove some of that grease each time that a train comes by. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's it. There is a machine with some hoses that goes up to the edge of the rail, and there is a system that applies the product. So when the train passes, takes part of the product and distributes it in the following 300, 400 meters of the track. And then the system prepares another amount of product for the next train.
I see. Okay, so it'll happen every train. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise. We'll now go to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
Hi there. My first question, I believe, is for Richard Holder. I'm wondering if you can describe exactly what needs to be redesigned on the wheel hub assemblies. Are they too weak? Are they too small? And And can you kind of explain how this redesign will alleviate those issues that you've identified?
I would prefer if Nicolas can take that call, please.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Whoever has the expertise.
Well, thank you, Ted, for the question. I don't claim specific expertise with respect to vehicle dynamics and axle bearing design, but I've been around for a couple of months and in a series of meetings. What we're looking at right now is a solution to strengthen the axle bearing assembly with a modification of components. We have a preliminary design, but I think it's generally difficult to describe the type of improvements that will be done to the axle bearing assembly without visual support. However, when we have more details on the actual improvements that will be done to strengthen the axle, we'll be more than happy to communicate those. We need to be mindful that for those that have had the opportunity to see a bogie and the amount of space that we have in the bogie, that space is very constrained. We don't have a lot of room, so we need to be efficient with either the choice of materials or the configuration to maximize the value of the strength that the axle is going to be able to support in terms of loads. But that's it.
Thank you, Nicolas. Just for your information, I would like to let you know that I'm working now with my team to have either at Transit Commission or at the LRT subcommittee to have a meeting on that. So we will make a deep dive with our experts, and we will be able to contribute as well. But I would like to have Alstom to come and explain what will be the design. I will let you know for sure via our media relation.
Okay, great. Obviously, I assume that'll take some time before that happens, but that's good to know. Okay, my second question is for you, Madame Imlukar. I know that you promised some more information on the return to service tomorrow, but I'm wondering if today you could just sort of talk a little bit about what you mean when you say gradual return to service. Are you talking about a full end-to-end service but with fewer trains running at first? Or are you talking more along the lines of a few sections of track might still be closed down?
Thank you for the question. So I'm waiting for the next draft, the safety note from Alstom. As soon as I will receive it, and I should receive it tomorrow morning. So that's why I will be more comfortable to talk about what will be the plan. But what I can tell you for now, Blair to Tunis-Pasteur is on our radar.
Okay, so Blair to Tunis-Pasteur, but possibly with fewer trains, or?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, merci. Nous allons maintenant à Adrien Paquette à la 3.
Bonjour, pour continuer un peu sur la question précédente.
Yes, to continue with the previous question. Yesterday we heard that there were 6 trains which needed to have looked at more carefully. So does that mean that all other vehicles or cars are ready for service? And how many trains could you then have that will work on the rail or on network? Thank you for that question. I wouldn't want to speculate because we're waiting for Alstom to tell us what capacity we will have available to us. So there might be some other kinds of work or related work. We have quickly, I can tell you that we have approximately 30 trains which are ready for service. However, there still may be something breaking in the meantime. And we are also waiting for other results from the other manufacturer. No, of course, I'm not expecting you to tell me there will be 13 trains available and that there will be exactly 13 trains available, but I was asking for a general rule of thumb figure. of trains that might be available. Yeah, tomorrow you will get that information based on what Alstom will provide me by way of information. Thank you.
At the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is a question for Madame Amilcar. I'm hoping you can answer this. Doug Ford said today that there will be no phase 3 funding until phase 1 and 2 run reliably. Do you have any understanding of what he means by that? Because he was not more specific. And what that would mean for the postponement of the entire rollout of the project as we see it?
Thank you very much for the question. So I cannot speculate for him. However, what I can tell you, it's actually the city and OC Transpo, we are working on the stage 1 and stage 2. And we will make sure that everything is okay before thinking to go to a stage 3.
Okay, and a follow-up question. Funding for the system was not either in the federal or the provincial government budgets this year. Is there going to be a funding problem? Because my understanding was that the city had counted on getting some of that money for its budget.
Are you talking about budget city-wise or?
Yes, yeah, funding for the transit system, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the time to talk about it, but like what I can say is we are working on it, and we will deliver the info when we will make sure that we have everything. So today my objective is to answer to the bearing issues problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nous allons à Laurie Trudel à Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour.
Laurie Trudel, Radio-Canada. Yes, my first question is for Ms. Amilcar. Can you please repeat in French if you are still able to meet your deadline of July 31st? And what inspections and what reviews are left before you can resume service? Thank you for the question. I had 3 goals. First of all, finish the inspection of all vehicles. This has been carried out. And then we are to receive from Exilis what happened with the RV32 that we stopped and withdrew. And thirdly, that Alstom provide us with a security note saying that based on the info that they have available, what the criteria are in order to resume delivery of the service. So tomorrow I should be receiving a note, which will be an almost final note, and that I'll be able, I hope, to share with you, indicating the level of service delivery that will be possible. Do you think that July 31st is still your set deadline? Absolutely. This is our set deadline. Maybe one of your colleagues might answer to this in the question, which is a little more technical. I was listening to the explanations regarding the grease, which is added in the bends. So could somebody try and explain this to me in French? Yeah, I can do it. So when there is a curve, when there's a bend, and on the route, there is additional friction. So these are specific areas where additional grease should be provided on the rail in order to allow the train to continue. And then the next train that will come in that curve will have additional grease, which will be distributed and spread along the route. So, yeah, this seems to be a very detailed answer. And also going back to our colleague Enrique answer, so there will be an additional system to the one which was just described in the curve. So there will be an additional system that will be meting out grease from the outside of the rail and with a predetermined quantity so that it will be able to cover the whole of the curve without having too much grease, which would be dispensed to the rail. But this is a very, very common technology which will be added to the one already existing. And we'll have to implement that. So will that be the permanent solution to the problem? No, that's a temporary solution. The permanent solution is to redefine the manner in which the axle is designed. And so this additional system will enable the system to function smoothly on the train route. So our final aim is to have permanent systems. However, in the meantime, we have other systems which are able to improve the greasing or other elements of the functioning of the system, especially for the retaining rail. And also, as what has been explained for the stop of the rail.
Hi there. I had a question
Bonjour.
about the instrumented bogey tests, just with the out of tolerance bearings. I was wondering, sort of first off, like how out of tolerance are these? So is it like a sort of slightly out of tolerance one where you're looking to catch things early, or are you running a couple different out of tolerance bearings, and at the same time, are you running the train under different loads?
Enrique?
Okay, just to clarify, okay, to consider that a bearing is in failure, that doesn't mean that the bearing is not capable to continue working. What means the failure process is long, is taking a long time. It needs a lot of kilometers to conduct a bearing up to the failure, the final failure of the system. So all the processes that we have in place at this moment are focused on identifying the first stage of the failure. And this is what is giving us the safety in terms of, okay, the sooner we identify that the bearing is starting this process, the more confidence we have in the safety and reliability of the fleet. So what we are doing with these tests is just choosing a bearing that is in this very early stage and doing tests, trying to identify with another, let's say, instruments or mechanisms, detect the behavior of the bearing during this process, during this failure. That gives us basically two pieces of information. How the bearing behaves when it starts the failure process, and the second one, how we can identify this with some kind of instruments to monitor on real time or in a potential implementation to monitor the behavior of the bearings. So this is basically the focus of this test.
Okay. And I guess my follow-up question is there any risk at all to the system when you're running something like this? It doesn't sound like there is, like it's fairly early in the process, but just to clarify.
No, absolutely. There is zero risk. We are extremely conservative during these tests. The risk is absolutely close to zero. Anyway, we have measures in place to ensure that there is no possibility of having any kind of incident, which means we have an engineer on board of the train that is permanently monitoring the behavior of the bearing. In case any of the parameters are out of the normal that we are observing during these tests, we stop the train and we go back to the MSF. So the test is absolutely conservative and totally safe for the infrastructure and the rolling stock.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Nous allons aller la mouche à Théâtre.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question, c'est pour Madame Amelka.
Good afternoon for Madame Amilcar. Going back to this morning's press conference with Premier Ford, Premier Ford seemed to mean say that Alstom should have some concern about its own performance and look at itself or themselves in the mirror. However, they're in France and they were far away. So is it perhaps not easier to work with the Canadian teams? Listen, we are not looking for a guilty party or a culprit. We have a contract with RTG, and these are the people whom we know. So we work with the team, which is RTG, Alstom, and APM. But Alstom has a worldwide recognition of its expertise. And I'm delighted to see that everybody has set aside their differences and are all working together towards a common aim. I know that you're working very hard on this problem. That's a good thing. So can we now hope that the trust and the confidence of users and travelers will be restored in the system? Thank you for the system. I'd be lying if I told you that there won't be any problem in the future. No, everywhere throughout the world there are problems, but now in this case we know what we have a specific problem with the bearing, and we're glad to know that we'll be working together for a long-lasting solution. But we're aware of the fact that other problems will arise in the future. And so we want to always be in a position to meet these problems with solutions and fast solutions. And I can tell you that the solution that we're implementing in terms of a bearing are very reliable solutions, and everything is reliable. However, there's still this problem with the bearing. So since we are very strict about the security of our passengers, we will wait the time it takes as quickly as possible. Inaudible.
We cannot hear you.
Inaudible.
Bonjour, peux-tu m'entendre maintenant?
Oui.
Okay,
Can you hear me now? Yes. Alexandra Anjab, Téléjournal. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. I'd like to have questions in French, please. So how do you translate bearing, roulement?
C'est le roulement ou c'est l'essieu ou...
Attendez, donnez-moi 2 petites secondes. J'ai Google Translate pas loin.
Merci pour...
J'ai honte.
Non, ça va. C'est juste que moi-même, je suis pas mécanicienne là, dans...
No, I'm not a mechanic myself. So I'd like to know how to... Okay, I'll get back to you. Yes, of course, take your time. Mr. Cochon, I understand that we should be improving the lubrication and also how to redesign the rails. Do we have to redesign the rails, or is it lubrication which has perhaps be more adequate? Thank you for the question. I'm pleased to answer. So there are two short-term adjustments regarding the retaining rail, and so it's part of the safety system, and also we have to change the position of the retaining rail, which has to be replaced or still within the maintenance space, and we have to move it in order to enable the cars to travel without having any contact in the curves with the retaining rail. Secondly, regarding the lubrication system of the rail. So there is a lot of work to do in this respect, but we are working on it and hoping to solve that. So regarding the replacement of the rail, that is not a solution that we are contemplating.
Est-ce que le 31 juillet, on aura repositionné le rail?
Will you have put back into place the retaining rail by July 31st? Yes, by the end of the week, and lubrication will take place during the next few weeks, or perhaps the fall, or even the winter. Thank you. Let me add that lubrication isn't part of the gradual return to normal delivery of service. It is something that we are adding, but it's not part of the initial framework plan. Thank you. So, pièce de roulement is the bearing.
We'll now go to Shane's segment, rail fans.
Hey, good afternoon. Yesterday it was announced that a new axle would be developed to replace the current units. So could you elaborate a bit more on the general timeline and workflow of the axle replacement? As the timeline or how it was put yesterday is a little confusing with 12 to 18 months and also 2 to 3 years. So if you could just clarify a bit more on what the expectation is on that.
Yeah, before to go to Nicolas Truchon, I would like to say that in a few weeks, we will have a deep dive on the design. So we will be able to provide you an ETA, etc. So maybe Nicolas, I don't know if you want to comment, but now it's just a little bit too early to, it's purely speculation because Alstom is the designer and it's Alstom who will tell us what we have to do.
Thank you, Renee. To the question, we do have a preliminary design that's been completed over the past few months as we were investigating other ways to mitigate this issue. We've greenlighted the Alstom to proceed with the detailed design phase. That phase is going to be occurring over the next couple of months. Following that design phase, there will be a prototype, sourcing materials in order to put together a prototype so that we can start the testing campaign. I'm still waiting for a detailed schedule. And again, as for any other projects, we will be pushing really hard to accelerate that schedule as much as possible, but we're not in a position right now to commit to a specific timeline until I have seen that schedule from Alstom. And with respect to the how we move from 12 to 18 months to 2 to 3 years, the 12 to 18 months is to complete the manufacturing of the prototype and the testing, and then the 2 to 3 years is with respect to a full fleet deployment, which is going to require this new design to be deployed on the fleet. So those would be the 2 data points.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's appreciated. And just as a quick follow-up, when we talk about the axle or the wheel assembly, could you just elaborate a bit more on what that really consists of? Because when you talk about a car and you say you're replacing the suspension, it could be shocks, struts, sway bars, ball joints. So on the train, are we talking just about the axle or the wheels, the bearings? What just generally speaking, what does that consist of?
Yeah, Richard will take that one.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So when we talk about the axle hub assembly, the subject to the design and the subject to the investigation work now, we're talking about the assembly, which contains the bearings. The wheel will not be replaced as part of this work. The wheel is attached to the hub assembly. And then the axle shaft is a shaft that is inserted inside the assembly. We do not know at this stage whether the axle itself will be replaced, but the focus of the work is on the hub assembly, which is also described as a cartridge.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have time for a few additional questions. So if you'd like to ask an additional question, please use the raise hand function and we'll go to you in order. All right, we'll go to Lee Skura at CBC Ottawa.
Thanks very much. I'm just wondering if it's possible to get any additional information on what prompted people to pull those 6 light rail vehicles to have further inspections and the kind of inspections that they're undergoing.
Richard?
So we've talked a couple of times about, one of the requirements for moving back into service was related to an inspection of all the hubs of the whole fleet. So as part of that investigation that's been happening over the last few days, there were 6 LRVs that were inspected where a hub was determined to be slightly over the tolerance level for a test that we call the pry bar test. So we have a threshold for measuring the amount of play within the hub, and these 6 vehicles had in 5 of the cases, each vehicle had 1 hub, and in 1 of the cases, a vehicle had 2 hubs, so 7 hubs in total, where the tolerance was exceeded by 1/1000th of an inch, so by a very small amount. So that was the nature of the further investigation, just to check that how far above the minimum tolerance each of those hubs was currently at in its current state.
Thanks. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please. I would just like to bring a precision there. The threshold is very, very conservative. It's normal to have those kind of measurements. However, because now we are on a huge investigation, so that's why we want to make sure that they are okay. And it's really an abundance of caution here, because this is normal on a business normal day. But because what happened with LRV22, we don't want to take any risk.
Yeah, I understand that. This is purely so that I can explain it better. So when you are saying play, is that the same as saying like looseness? Or I just want to understand it in layman's terms.
Yeah, and I will take this one because it's important. It's normal to have a play because, if you want to put the bearing in the axle, if you don't have a play, you cannot. Otherwise, you will need to press fit when you call. Okay, so because of that, you always have a play. It's normal, but when that play becomes over a certain conservative threshold, that means you have to verify it. It's like if you have fever. If you have 38.6, it's okay, but if you have 39, 40, you have a problem, right? So we don't want to take any chance with those six vehicles. However, it's normal, but because we are conducting this huge investigation, it's time to have a deep dive on everything, and we don't want to take any risk.
Thank you. We'll go to Ted Raymond at CTV.
Okay, hi. I wanted to follow up on the lubrication system, just based on what I heard previously, also in French. So I believe, Nicolas, this would be for you. Am I understanding correctly that the trains already have on them kind of a system that applies something to the rails, and then you're looking to get a second system that applies that grease to the rail itself ahead of the train? Am I right in that understanding?
That is correct.
Okay. Could you just describe how common this might be? I think you heard you say you wanted to adapt it to the Ottawa context, but how common is this kind of lubrication system for rail systems, if you know?
I would like Enrique was this expertise.
Enrique, oh sure, yeah, that we're.
Okay, the systems designed to lubricate the flange of the wheel are very common in the sector, actually are on standard. Almost all the trains, regardless of what kind of train, locomotives, passenger trains, have this system. Basically, the purpose of the flange lubrication is to ensure guidance, control the wear of the rail and the wheel. So this is a very standard system. The one that is proposed for as part of the mitigation of this situation is a top of rail lubrication, which is basically a product that is used to modify the friction coefficient in the contact between the wheel and the rail. These systems are relatively common basically for two purposes. The first one is for noise mitigation. It's quite used in some environments where the noise due to the friction between the wheel and the rail creates some environmental issues. And this is quite common to see other networks that use this system for that purpose. And in our specific situation, we are using this system to control and reduce the forces, the contact forces between the wheel and the rail. So this is basically the purpose of the system. And it's relatively common. I mean, the flange lubrication is extended in almost all railways. The top of rail is not so extended, but also very used for these two purposes.
Okay. Okay. And just really quickly, this is, I understand, is not part of the return to service plan. Is this going to be a temporary measure until the axle redesign is complete?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pour la dernière question, nous allons à Julien Paquette à la 3.
Bonjour.
Julien Paquette for the last question, le droit. I realize that I may have misunderstood the temporary provisions that had been planned. So regarding the retaining rail, how do they operate? What is the system? How do they function? If you could perhaps describe what it's all about, this containment rail. Thank you for the question. So normally you have the rail which help the car move. When there is a curve, then you have retaining rails. Why? Because when you know that a train wants to go straight ahead. So when there is a curve, we need to help the train add the ability to espouse the curve. And if not, the wheel will, one of the wheel will come a little higher than the other one, which is absolutely normal. And that happens when we take a curve in the car. But we need to have this lifting of the wheel to be controlled. And this is why we have a retaining rail, so that should the wheel want to leave the rail, the retaining rail will keep the wheel over the rail. So we want things to happen in a controlled measure when we need it. And we need to have contact with, sometimes when there is constant contact with the retaining rail, there is some metal fatigue, even if the forces which are exerted are minimal. However, there might be an accumulation of these forces which tend to create metal fatigue, and you have an external force developing. This is what we want to prevent. And if we move the retaining rail by, say, a couple of millimeters or very, very small change, this will make a difference, because when there is a sharp curve, normally the wheel doesn't touch the retaining wall, but if necessary, it can just touch the retaining wall and be rebalanced. it's a little bit like when you teach children to go on a bicycle, they have the little wheel on the sides, left and right, just to balance them out and help them learn how to keep their balance. Thank you.
This concludes our media availability today. Thank you very much. Merci. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.